So, welcome, Lynn, to the Abundance Club. We were just having a little
Thank
chat
you.
beforehand. I'm like, I want to press record because even everything that you're saying, I want to capture. And I want to start by saying I read your beautiful, extensive bio, which was it took me on such a journey. And I feel like there's so many different areas I could dive into, but it's just really clear
Mhm.
that you have been on such a rich and expansive journey. I want to say maybe 40 years. And it feels like it's this true quest, which is
Yeah.
clearly flavored by your own, I guess, thirst and curiosity for spiritual wisdom and, embarking on spiritual pilgrimages and in guiding people as a mentor yourself and a channel, which I want to get into all of that. So many different aspects. And these are all of the things that I love so much. So I feel like this is going to be such a beautiful, rich, and juicy conversation. Where I would love to start with, I guess, is the moment that really, if there was a moment that really stood out for you, perhaps it was early on, perhaps more recently, where something landed for you. It just, you could feel it in your bones where you just knew that this is it. This is my path. This is what I'm here to do, right? We hear that calling and we answer it, and this is my divine assignment. So was there a point, and when was that, when you felt that clarity where you just knew that, ah, right, this is what I'm here to do?
Amy, thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate it. And thank you for everything that you said. Like I can't stop smiling. My cheeks are aching right now. This is so exciting for me. There were two moments for me that really defined who I have discovered myself to be. When I was living in Hawaii, it was 20, when was it? No, no, no. Good Lord. It was 1996. I was 35 and I had just moved to Hawaii, working in business over there. And in our business office, this woman walks in and she said, I just got my Reiki master certificate. And I said, what's Reiki? Is that anything like Aikido? Because I had started practicing martial arts while I was living over there. And she said, well, I means love. Ki is life force energy, like ki or chi or prana. And she said do is movement. So aikido is this beautiful art. So reiki is like taking the life force and channeling it. And I thought, oh my God, I want to learn how to do that. So she had a class. There were three of us in the class, three students. And it was the point on Sunday. So the class was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 3 hours each day. And each day you received a different attunement to the Reiki symbols as they were like impressed in your body or in your soul or however, wherever there it is they go. And I'm lying on the Reiki table. There's a girl named Tara, who's my friend. We did the class together. She's behind me, so her hands are in a position with her fingers just over my throat chakra. Her boyfriend, Mark, is on my left. Maureen, the Reiki master, my dear friend, is on the right. My body starts convulsing. And I'm not even kidding you. Out of the sky at about 10 o'clock, this golden beam of light comes and hits me in my third eye. And I say the word Hathor out loud.
Mm.
And I suddenly see the symbol of a sun disk and cow horns. And I say, does someone have a piece of paper? And I write down Hathor and I draw the symbol. This is 1996. We don't have an iPhone. We don't have an internet. I said, does anyone know who or what a Hathor is? And nobody knew. So the next day, Tara and I go to Barnes and Noble, which is our version of the internet back then.
Mm.
And Barnes and Noble is a big bookstore here in America. So we walk in and we say, do you know who or what a Hathor is? And they say, oh, yes, she's the Egyptian goddess of women. And I was like, wow. I'd always loved Egypt. And now I was like, I'm bound and determined to go there someday.
Mm.
So what happened was with that initiation, I started having glimpses of past lives. I didn't know what to do with it, but I was fascinated because when I was young, I had read about Edgar Casey, the sleeping prophet, and how he would go into the Akashic Records. Then the other incident that, it was like spirit kept sending me on this pathway. The other experience that blew my mind was in 2009. I went with my Kabbalah teachers and a whole group of us, 22 of us, went to Israel, and we're in the right across from the city of David. It's called the Mount of Olives, and it's this incredible graveyard. And there are these graves that are painted almost like this color blue, maybe a little lighter.
Mm.
And they hold the bodies of these beings that are known as the Sadiqim, these Kabbalistic masters who have passed away. And they say that there are 36 of them that are alive at any one time. So our teacher leads us over to this one gravestone, and it's a huge, huge, huge gravestone, like size of a coffee table, and it's painted blue. And all of my cronies, like everyone's leaning over and touching this grave, and I'm like taking my time. You can't step on a grave, and I was not happy. It was like 113 degrees. I was not a happy woman. And I finally get to the grave, and I put my hands on the grave like everybody else does, and this golden shaft of light opens up, and it circles me, and it comes down like one of those transport devices in Star Trek. And the being in the grave starts talking to me, and I'm thinking, what's going on? Like, I've never
Mm.
done drugs. This isn't an LSD flashback. But he says to me telepathically, "Welcome home, beloved. Your father is waiting for you." And
Mm.
I think, my father. And he says, "You know him as Abraham." And I said, "Abraham." And he said, "Avram." So since I was a little girl and I started meditating, because that was something that I was fascinated by when I was 11 and read the Edgar Cayce book, because he would go into a trance. I had this being, and he looked like the actor David Strathern, skinny, beard, and he would always introduce himself as Avram. Well, it turned out that Avram was Abraham the patriarch, and I was his daughter of his third wife, and he named me Sarah after his sister, who was Abraham, Isaac, and Sarah, and Jacob, and all those guys. The next thing I know, we're in the city of David, and then we're being taken to Hebron, where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are buried. And I started having even more crazy past life downloads. And then I started to be able to hear people who had passed over. So when these things started happening, I was like, all right, I need to pay attention. I was working in banking and finance. I was managing $500 million for a private bank. Like, my mind was always like business. You gotta make money, you gotta do business. But there was a spiritual side of me that was like banging on the door, like pay attention to us. So there was a place where I finally surrendered to it, left all the business work behind, and started doing this as a business in 2017. And then COVID came. We used to run something called the Psychic Development Academy because there was a lot of training that I had received over the years. I've got almost 40 certificates now of certifications and education of how to be able to contact through mediumship beings that have left the physical body. I've had clients of mine and students of mine that have become pet mediums because they can talk to pets, both living and passed over, which is incredible.
Mm.
I have now I have an appreciation of what is life and what is death, and knowing that we're immortal beings. The physical body, it's like as we change vestments, and we change clothes, but there's something that's so eternal. And I have the honor and the privilege of being able to be in communication with that and teaching others how to do that as well.
I mean, it's just what an incredible journey. And the fact that that awakening for you, or I guess even a remembrance, you mentioned that, like, welcome home, beloved, like so, so powerful. And for you, that was so profound that you couldn't ignore it, right? You just,
The name of the grave I touched was the Rabbi Shalom Sharabi, and my Kabbalah teacher was Rabbi Shalom Sharabi, and he was the fifth generation of this being. And what's carved on the top of the grave is, "Who comes to me pure of heart, I will speak with thee." And I was
Mm.
the one that got spoken to in that trip. You can't ignore those things. It's
Yeah.
God knocking on the door going, "Are you ready to let me in?"
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. And you had mentioned being 11 years old, and I think I'd read in your bio that your mum gave you a book, the Edgar Cayce, The Sleeping Prophet.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
I think that's so beautiful, the way that our mothers, I was introduced into spirituality and personal development from my mum at a young age as well. So I
Oh,
really resonate with that. And I think that
right.
that's such a gift.
It's like
Um,
our own little coven.
yeah, I think it is. So you had obviously been open to that. You mentioned about meditating and having a curiosity, and yet you went into the financial world, into the business. world.
Because
So
what my mother said was, your men will leave you. They will quit. They will die. You know, you have to
mm,
make sure that you are a successful businesswoman. You cannot count on a man. Like, what horrible programming to give a
mm,
child
mm,
while she's slipping me Edgar Casey. I
mm,
remember reading that book at 11 where Edgar Casey was going into the Akashic Records, and the only place you could do that at 11 years old for me was you'd have to go to India, you know?
mm,
But I love that our mothers handed, we wanted to read whatever my mother was reading. My sister and I read this book together.
mm,
And Edgar Casey would heal people through feeding them or through what it was he was able to bring back from the Akash. So my sister went into nutrition and I went into all things spiritual. I would sit with clients and their dead uncle would suddenly show up next to them and I would ignore them. But the dead uncle would say, you should have my grandson buy this restaurant over on Pico Boulevard. And I would say, I heard there's a restaurant for sale over on Pico. Have you thought about investing in a restaurant? And the grandson would say,
mm.
God, I just thought about that. And the grandfather's like, yes, yes, yes. But I can't say to the client, by the way, your dead grandfather's sitting next to you giving me this wisdom and advice.
What was
So
the point then when you obviously you knew you had these gifts then there was a curiosity that was sparked, and I think so much of what we receive when we're younger is preparing us for what we're here to do on our soul's journey, but we can
yes,
resist it and we can maybe delay it, and obviously there was that path that you needed to go down. So after these kind of activations and being in Israel and having that clear guidance of okay, this is my soul's path, was there resistance? You mentioned the word surrender, which is I think is so powerful in that kind of juncture between having that revelation and you deciding, okay, I'm actually going to make this my business. I'm actually going to go out. And can you speak about that process? What was involved for you? Was there a lot of resistance that you really just had to surrender into, okay, this is here for me and there's a divine plan? You speak about divine abundance coming from the business world and receiving abundance in perhaps more of that masculine way into now being a teacher in the divine feminine. What did you really need to lean into? What did you really need to understand to get that certainty for yourself to be able to make that shift?
I had to surrender the fear of caring what anyone else thought about me.
Mm,
So when I got back from Israel, I was visiting with my best friend. We were up in the Bay Area and we're in a room together downstairs in her house. And all of a sudden I said, Veronica, there's a presence here and they're talking to me. They want to have a conversation with you. And this being starts saying to me some things to her. And she goes, oh my God, Lynn, that's Steve. He was the doctor that I worked for who was killed when he went into the ocean to save his son. He was pulled under with the undertow. And Steve is giving me information that there's no way I ever could have known. And she said to me, when did you start speaking to people who had crossed over? And I said, in Israel. So Israel was in July, and I'm visiting with her in September. And so I go to my sister and I say, listen, this crazy thing is happening. I'm able to talk to people who've crossed over. She goes, wow. I go, don't tell mom. Because my mom was like this Christian and she was like, going to be
mm,
crazy about this. So my sister sends me her best friend, Jill. And Jill goes, my dad died recently. Do you think you could give me a message from my dad? So I tune into her father. And all I know is he starts showing me giraffes, like giraffes everywhere. And then he says, tell my daughter I love her, to take care of her mother. And I said, Jill, there's giraffes everywhere. And she goes, giraffes, what are you talking about? I said, he's showing me wooden giraffes. He's showing me glass giraffes. He's showing me pictures of giraffes. There's just giraffes everywhere. And she goes, there are no giraffes, Lynn. Thank you so much. She goes back to my sister and she says, your sister's out of her mind. She kept talking about giraffes. And Pam's like, I don't know. She said she can talk to the dead. She goes to her mom and she said, oh, Pam said her sister is a medium. And I asked her to talk to daddy. And she said that daddy kept showing her giraffes. And the mother said, well, that's because your father and I have a collection of over 50 giraffes. And
wow.
I was like, so Jill goes back to Pam, my sister, and she says, your sister may be onto something. And but I was scared to tell my mom. So one day it came out that I was at a hospital with my mom. She had like a 5-hour stay in the hospital. And what happens is Jesus comes to me, he goes into my body, and then we lay hands on people, we do healing. But I don't tell people, like, you want to clear a room, you tell everyone you channel. Hi, my name is Lynn and I channel Jesus.
Mm, 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 mm,
So I'm with my mom at the hospital waiting. There's this lovely girl sitting next to me. She's with her mom for hours. I'm with my mom for hours. And Jesus comes in and he says, I want you to bring me in and we're going to heal that woman in that chair. And I'm like, there's no way I'm doing this. I'm in a hospital. My mother's here. What are you, crazy? And he goes, okay. And he leaves. And then he comes back and he goes, are you ready? And I'm like, no, no, please don't ask me a third time. Because my deal with him is by the third time I have to say yes. And he comes back and he goes, okay, let's go. So I turned to the girl and I said, listen, I have this ability to lay hands on people and to do healing. Could I have permission to work with your mom? And she's this elegant woman in a wheelchair, looks like she's dressed to go to a ball. She's Polish, so she goes and speaks to her mom, broken English and Polish. And the mother looks at me and she wags me over with the finger. And she says yes. And so Jesus comes in and he says, put one hand on her left shoulder and the other hand on the top of her head. And I feel him come in and he like literally pulls something out of her and pulls it through me and pulls it out. And then he says, put your hand on the front of her chest and then the back of her chest. And it's like everything goes golden. And then he leaves and I pull back and I look at her and he says, tell her to move her left shoulder. And I basically say, like motion to her, move her arm. And she's able to move her arm. And she says to me in broken English, 4 months, I cannot move. And then she says, I know you have the gift.
Mm.
And my mother sees this. And I'm like, oh my God, the cat's out of the bag. And my mom's like, because one time I heard my mom talking to a friend. She goes, yeah, my daughter lives with me. She takes care of me. Yeah, she's the one who said she channels Jesus. What can I say? And I was like, Mom, she's like, Lynn, you're telling me you're actually channeling Jesus? Like, come on. But now she's like, my daughter channels Jesus and she's a healer. And our priest says that, she's anyway, but there was this such resistance of like, am I really going to tell people that I channel Jesus? And the answer is yes, because it's the truth. And I live and die by the truth. Like it's just people are like, you're so authentic. I don't know any other way to be.
I love that. And people will feel that as well. And I can see that in you. I mean, I'll make sure I put this on YouTube for people to be able to see your energy. I said that straight away. You mentioned you had a really big day of different podcasts and sessions. I was like, you're glowing. You have so much energy. You look like you've just gotten out of bed. So,
Oh,
I mean, it's incredible. I want to talk more about this channeling
yeah.
because, well, first of all, Hathor, I'm incredibly interested in that.
Mm,
Second of all, Jesus, and you've written a book, Channeling Mary Magdalene, which
yeah.
I am so excited about because I'm particularly drawn to her. Yeah, beautiful. I want to get into, so this is Channeling Mary Magdalene, A Year of Love. I haven't read it. I am going to get it
Mm,
because I love Mary Magdalene and her teachings, and I love the Course of Miracles as well. So when this opened up for you with channeling and you've got some big names that have come in for you, I mean, it started with Hathor, and I would love it if there's anything you want to share about her teachings,
yeah.
what she's here to
Uh-huh.
remind us to activate within us. I feel like I was schooled by Hathor in a past life.
Oh, she said you were. She
Yeah.
said we were together in the temples. I I took a group of people to Egypt in 2023. And as we're cruising up the Nile, Hathor comes to me and she says, you're not scheduled to go to my temple. And I said, well, what are you talking about? We're going to Dendera. She said, no. She said, ask Alicia. And Alicia was she's my chief marketing officer and the one who arranged the whole trip for us. And so I messaged Alicia and I said, Hathor just came to me and said that we're not scheduled to go to Dendera to her temple. And she said, no, I just found out that when we get there, when we get to Luxor, we're actually going to be, it gets in too late for us to be able to go to her temple. And I said, well, what are we doing the next day? She said, we're going out to the Red Sea. And I said, cancel the Red Sea Hotel for all of us for that first night. We've got to find a place to go to. I'm in my phone and I find a place called the House of Hathor. I kid you not. I take a screenshot of it. It's on Airbnb and it'll be able to accommodate all of us, 9 of us. At the same time I send it to Alicia, she sends it back to me. And I
Mm.
said, okay, let's book it. So we were able to get a ride to go there. They they rolled the red carpet out for us. Like this was her house.
Yeah.
And it was like they made private meals for us. They had rooms to accommodate 9 of us. I mean, it was just crazy how it all worked out.
Mm.
And the next day we'd go to Dendera to her temple. We get a private bus And as we walked in, I was immediately drawn to this room on the right. And I go and I sit down, and it's videotaped by my marketing genius, little Alicia. And I start speaking in light language. And then I start channeling Hathor. And there was another woman on our trip who's an extraordinary artist. Her name is Matanya Lennings. Matanya sits down and she just starts singing. She's classically trained in opera, and the police come with guns blazing.
Mm,
And they say to us, "You cannot sing." Hathor is from Lyra. And the reason why Sekhmet, you know how Hathor can change into Sekhmet?
mm,
And the reason why Sekhmet looks like a lion is because Lyra is a feline planet or star, or whatever it is. It's a feline civilization that came and populated Earth millions of years ago. It's why the lion is the king of the jungle. It's why all over the temples, all over Egypt, there are cats. You literally can feed them. So the ceilings are 50 feet tall in the temples, but you can see where there's black marks where they tried to burn the temples. And on the top of her pillars were her face, and they scratched them out. And I said, "Hathor, what is this?" And she said, "They tried to burn us. They tried to scratch us away, but we are here to stay." And she was the first being that came to me. I first channeled Athena, and then Hathor came in next. And there have now been 20 of them, 20 ascended masters, incredible ascended masters. But Hathor established the schools in
mm,
Egypt. Isis then came in, and Isis has even said in the Sophia Code that what was established as modern day Kabbalah actually comes from Egypt, comes from Atlantis. Like,
mm,
this is sacred. And Hathor's saying to me now that you have been trained by her. Ooh,
mm,
my ear is buzzing right now. That you have been trained by her, that you are one of her high priestesses.
mm,
So, oof,
wow.
wow, my ear just totally popped. It's coming back. Ooh.
Mm, mm.
Yes, she has a deep, deep connection with you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's no accident that we're here right now. And you mentioned her as one of the first. And
Yeah,
I've read the Sophia Code. I loved the Sophia Code, and that was new to me. That was when I was first introduced to that. And there was just a remembrance, and you have
exactly. Exactly.
that
Like,
soul
you just
remembrance.
know.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
with Yeshua and Magdalene, it was January of 2019, and I had broken up with a relationship. He and I worked together. Because he and I broke up, I ended up having to leave the company where I worked, and I had my own private practice, and everything just collapsed for me. And I was literally lying on my bed feeling like I just didn't want to be alive because of the heartbreak. There were
Mm,
6 people that were dear to me, and I disconnected from all of them in this one space of 2 weeks. And I remember lying on my bed saying, "Yeshua, I don't want to be here anymore. I need your help." And suddenly Mary Magdalene started coming in.
was this the
And
first time that you'd had an experience with her?
Mhm.
Mm,
And so I had a girlfriend that was channeling Jesus, and I started channeling Mary Magdalene. And the very first time she came to me, she said, "Thank you for taking care of the children." And I saw this whole recollection of, I knew that I was Yeshua's younger sister, but she was my sister in law, and they were married and they had children, and I babysat the children. And
mm,
Magdalene was my favorite person in the universe.
mm,
So Yeshua and Magdalene came to me. They had me read The Disappearance of the Universe by Gary Renard. And it was the end of 2019. So I started reading in January. I savored that book. I never wanted it to end. It's now November. And I finished the book, and I'm like, oh, it's about the Course in Miracles. I'm going to get back to studying A Course in Miracles.
mm.
And I hear this voice in my head that says, wouldn't it be great if there was someone who was channeling Jesus and he was doing commentary on the lessons that he had written in A Course in Miracles? And I think to myself, I wonder where I would find someone like that. And I literally hear this voice that says, Google channeling Jesus. So I Google channeling Jesus, and I find Tina Spalding in this incredible community. And I'm like, I'm leaving Facebook. Facebook was a little rough and tumble at the time. COVID was kicking in. And I
Mm,
went over to Tina's platform called Mighty Networks. And it's very interesting. So I start the Course of Miracles. I'm like, I'm going to do the whole year. I start the Course of Miracles, January 1, January 2, January 3, January 4th. I write to Tina and I'm like, thank you so much for this community. It's incredible. By the way, I want you to know that I channel Mary Magdalene. She goes, oh my God, that's great. You should tell the community. So she's channeling, Yeshua. I'm channeling Mary Magdalene. And then sometime later that year, around September, Magdalene and Yeshua come to me and they say, we're going to ask you to please take a journey with Magdalene through the 365 lessons of A Course in Miracles. So I channeled her every day. I actually got lifted out of New York and moved to Virginia. And every single day for a year, I channeled Magdalene. A dear friend of mine from Tina's community transcribed every single word that I spoke. I don't think we had Otter AI at the time. And he
Mm.
turned it into a book. And then when I got back from Egypt, Magdalene and Yeshua said it's time to publish the book. And three dear friends showed up. And it turns out that they were the three wise men that came to his birth. And they were the ones editing the book. Like, you can't make this shit up. You know what I'm
No.
saying? Like, you can't, like, I'm not Spielberg. I'm not Lucas. I'm not that creative. I'm not in the Akashic Records like they are. I'm just living my life and all this crazy, miraculous stuff is happening. So we published on July 19th. The book lands in my hands on July 22nd, which is Magdalene's feast day.
Mm.
And now the book that I'm writing with her is called La vie et la vérité de Marie Magdalene. And it's the life and truth of Mary Magdalene. And the stuff that she's bringing forth, Amy, they're either going to kill me for this or they're going to laud me for this. The stuff that's coming through, the stories, the truths,
Yeah.
the children, the marriage, all of it.
So
It's just the truth.
what do you feel about her teachings
Oh my God.
that the world is
So,
so ready
right.
to hear and receive now? And I know, she shares so much about the divine feminine, and what is it now that's coming through that you feel like, okay, we need to hear this, we need to hear and heed this
The
message,
fact, the fact that he turned the lineage over to her, the fact
Mm,
that she was married to Saul, who then became Paul. And the reason he hated Christianity so much was because he was jealous of Yeshua. And then he had this epiphany. And while he created the construct for Christianity, it was very misogynistic because how mad he was. Magdalene, that was her first marriage, and she had a child with him, and he just hated them. So this all gets very personal, and people have no idea.
mm,
This is so I was in France for a month in January and then a month in April, and every day I would go to two of her churches. I was staying in Marseille, and I would either go out to St. Baume and sit in the church, and she would channel through me. And I recorded it all on my phone, and we're now compiling that book, and that's going to be published this year. Or I would go to Notre Dame de la Garde, which is the top of the hill in Marseille, and there's a statue of a woman holding a child, but it's not Mother Mary and Yeshua. It's Magdalene holding the child that she had with
mm,
Yeshua.
mm, mm.
And there's so much that people don't know that's going to come out in this book. I found her gospel in French. I translated it to English. That's going to be included, the full gospel. What she wants people to know is that the lineage was passed to her because she was the greatest living embodiment of a Christed being. Yeshua says that. He
Mm.
says she went from being my student to being my teacher to being the greatest living embodiment of what it was that I was here teaching. That's why I gave her the lineage. And it was because she had the diversity as a woman does, instead of the kind of myopic single focus that a man does,
Mm.
to be able to fully take in the width, the breadth, and the depth of what Yeshua was actually trying to teach, that God lives within us, that the kingdom of heaven is within because we already have it. And we're so busy trying to find it outside of it, but it lives within us. And that was what she was teaching.
Yeah, that remembrance, isn't it? That
Exactly.
returning. Yeah.
Exactly. To inside, to within. And
Mm,
that's what she's doing. And it's bringing balance. When I was in Israel in 2009, I sat at the Wailing Wall and I had this incredible vision where, like, God had come and taken the Shekinah, which is like the mortar, out of the holy temple, which is why it was able to be destroyed not once but twice. And the masculine is like the brick, and the feminine is like the mortar that goes in between.
mm.
And he took the divine feminine out. And for years, for thousands of years, it's been a masculine dominated society.
Yeah.
But right now, we're coming back in because we passed through 2012. We passed through the destruction of what we had done in Atlantis, and we have an opportunity to to live this time, to not do, when Hiroshima and Nagasaki happened, beings came from all over the universe, like, wah, 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 warning, warning, shit's going down on Gaia. They need our help. And they're here to help us.
Mm.
And it's all going to get revealed. It all comes out in the wash eventually.
No, and I can feel that, and it really feels like this old paradigm of the masculine way of doing things is
Crumbling.
crumbling.
It is.
And so what do we need to remember? And as women, in terms of our power and our nature, our inherent nature of who we are as co-creators in our own world, what do you feel we're most needing to come home to and activate within ourselves?
There is a holy portal between our legs that is a portal to our own divinity and is a portal to God. And there is a power that we have, and it has tried to be taken from us. And Yeshua, we had this crazy thing happen. He said in January, we want you to take on a tantric lover. And I haven't been in a relationship with anybody in 4 years. And I'm like, I'm 63. I'm old. What do you get? Like, I don't think anything works anymore. I think I'm done. And he's like, not the case. And I'm in Marseille. I'm in the south of France. And there's nothing but like gay hookups. And I'm like, I'm not doing this. And then one of my girlfriends in France says, I want to introduce you to this guy. He wants to have a conversation with Jesus. And when we were connecting, it was so electric between us. He's like, I have to meet you. This was on a Sunday. And I'm like, well, you know, where are you? And he said, I'm in Geneva. And I'm like, oh my God. He said, but I live in LA and I'm flying back. And I'm like, well, I'm in Marseille. Come to Marseille. And he's like, no, I can't. He goes, we got to meet in Paris. So we both flew in together in Paris, and we just had like the great awakening and the great opening. And he's like, you need to honor that you are a goddess. And he was a tantric master. I'm like, how does this happen? Jesus sets it up. And he says, you need to have complete reverence for your body, for the power that you are as a woman and as a goddess. And it unlocked something inside of me. And so I stand in this place, and Yeshua said, this is exactly what we needed you to do. We needed you to unlock this piece so you can receive the last of the channeling from us. And what I brought forth was just like, it's mind blowing. I can't wait for everybody to read this book. And what we have as women is a power within us. Men know that there's one place to have, men have a biological imperative for sex that women don't, but the one place that they know to get sex is from us. So we have such power in that dynamic, but when it is given as a gift, when it is not taken from us, when it is shared, when it is done with love and reverence and respect and admiration and grace, the union of those two together is what Yeshua and Magdalene had. Yeshua said, we practiced tantric sex. Of course we did. He said, we were still physical. He said, there was this notion I didn't have sex. There was this notion I didn't have children. Magdalene was pregnant 7 times, 2 miscarriages and 5 children. So there are descendants that I actually met in Marseille in an Uber. And all of a sudden, Yeshua and Magdalene are in the Uber with me. And Yeshua goes, he is mine. And I say, Magdalene, what does that mean? And she said, oh, he's one of our descendants. And then I met a doctor, and I met a waitress, and I met a woman at a jewelry store, all descendants of theirs. And they would show up in the same space with these people. And the people are like, what's going on? And everyone would get like tears in their eyes. It's unbelievable when they show up, what happens.
Mm.
And one of my students said, why is Lynn the one that's writing this book? And they said, because she is the person that we loved the most. She is the person that we trusted the most. And they grace me every day of my life. I said to him one time, you know, you've always been my favorite brother. And he goes, well, yeah, you're my favorite too. And I said, you say that to everybody. He goes, yeah, but I mean it when I say it to you. So we have this very fun relationship.
Do you have then, once this became activated in you and you remembered this, did you have past life memories? Did you have memories of being in the light before incarnating and
The soul contract that we made, yes.
yeah, and you can have memories of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that I'm literally living what it is that I kept my promise to God. There's a book I always wanted to write called Promises to God. We promise God that there are certain things that we will do each lifetime, and I'm living my path. I'm living the promise that I made, the promise that I made to Yeshua, to Magdalene, all the different beings that I channel, but most importantly, to Sophia and to Allah, who are God and Goddess to me.
So soul purpose, what have you come to know about our soul purpose in this lifetime then, for those that are listening thinking, I want to know, I want to activate this in me. We all have contracts, we all have chosen to be here at this time, and to remember, how do we know, and
For
how do
me,
yeah.
for me, it's going into the Akashic Records. Everybody has access to their own Akash. And I teach people how to read the records. I've taught hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people to read. I teach students how to now teach other people how to read the records. I studied with Linda Howe. A girlfriend of mine, Tiffany, in 2017 posted on Facebook that she had learned how to read the records and needed to practice on people. And I called her on the phone and I'm like, oh my God, I need a reading. And when she did the reading for me, I realized entering the world of the Akash, talk about abundance. There is nothing you cannot know about your past, your present, or your future. It's all written in there. It's like that scene in Harry Potter where they go in where all the remembrals are.
Mm, mm.
And they're like these little glass balls that have that silver thread that's like a memory of the Akash. Everything that we want to and need to know exists within that domain. So people come to me. I've done thousands of readings of people since 2017, and they say, what is my soul purpose? And I say, like for me, I knew that my soul purpose was to remind people of their relationship with God, meaning having access to their own divinity. And the tool that I do for that is through the Akashic Records. So one of my favorite things is to teach people how to open the records and how to read the records. So I said to Tiffany, how did you learn this? And she said, oh, from somebody who studied with somebody who studied with somebody, like five steps away from Linda Howe, who wrote the quintessential book. So I studied with Linda. She started a training in January. I studied with her for 3 months. There were a group of 48 of us around the world. It was called Learn It Live. It was just like Zoom. And I learned how to read the records. And the very first time I opened the records, there were these beings jumping up and down, screaming at me, halls of Amenti, halls of Amenti, halls of Amenti. I was terrified out of my mind. I closed the records. I go to Linda and I'm like, what the heck just happened? And she said, well, obviously they're very excited to see you. Do you know what the halls of Amenti are? So I go to the Google and it says the halls of Amenti are where Thoth, the Atlantean, kept the Akashic records in Atlantis until he put them in his spaceship and flew them to Egypt. And I'm like this, Amy, this is, you can't make this stuff up, right?
No, you certainly can't.
So I end up going to Mount Shasta and I have a conversation with Thoth in a portal to Telos. Like this is the stuff. Oh my God. I tell people, and it's if it's not people like you, they're like, what? I tried to explain to I had to go get a physical today, and I was explaining to the girl who was drawing my blood. She's like, what do you do?
Did you tell her?
Oh, I say I teach people. I'm a teacher and a healer.
Yeah.
It's just it's incredible.
That
I've
coming
been
out of the spiritual closet is a big one. And I think
it
it's
is
a big one for a lot of people. And yet the wild thing is that that's the most natural thing, really, because that is who we are. That's our
it
nature.
is.
People say, I'm not spiritual. It's like, but you are. That is who you
That's
are.
exactly who we are.
And
And we're
it's
having a
only the
physical
conditioning,
experience. Yeah.
right? It's only the conditioning that's made
Yes.
us believe the illusion that we're not that. And that's what's so wild.
I
So,
love that you're saying that because we
yeah.
are brainwashed out of theta. Theta is how we contact the
Mm,
spiritual realm. It's our field of imagination. And
mm,
when we're little and we're told, you can't see that, there's no one there, we start to believe it and we shrink from theta into alpha and then into beta.
yeah.
And beta is the reading, writing, and arithmetic. We are brainwashed out of access to God. We are told we can't talk to God. It's like, of course you can.
So,
That's our
what's the
divine nature.
pathway then? You teach people how to tap in and become their own channel.
Well, one of the things that I do is I teach them how to open their clairs,
Yeah.
clairsentience, clairaudience, claircognizance, clairvoyance, because the clearer you're able to go into the records, the more you're going to develop the conviction of knowing that when you open the records, which is done through a prayer, and you allow that information to come, the clearer you are, the more you will have confidence. No one can knock me off my point about my relationship with Jesus. No one can say they can say anything that they want, but I know who I am. I know what the gifts are that I have. I know what I've seen. I know what I've heard. I know what I've felt. I know what's come in from me from spirit. You can't ever take those away from me. You can't tell me I didn't lay my hands on a grave and talk to the dead guy, you know?
And I
You
guess it's
can't
it's
tell.
it's developing that muscle, isn't it? And
Exactly.
trusting and trust. I mean, I've had moments of that myself in
Yeah.
working with different archangels and bringing through those messages. It's
Yes,
very easy,
exactly.
it's very easy to go into doubt. And when we trust, we just build that muscle so much more.
It's confidence. My Kabbalah teacher always says confidence. Someone said to me recently that worry and anxiety are acts of an atheist.
Mm,
Because if you had complete faith in God, you would never worry again. I worry about nothing.
mm, mm,
Friends say to me, how do you not have wrinkles at 63? I say, no husband, no children, no worry.
mm. Yeah, and I have 3 children, and I'm 42, and I've probably got more than you. But I
You're
love this.
beautiful.
You mentioned, thank you. You mentioned about Kabbalah, and that's been something that's been coming to me over the last couple of years as well. So again, no accident that you're here and we're having this conversation. And you've mentioned it already. You spoke about Magdalene, and you spoke about the power of our womb, and talk to me about this path of the Kabbalah and how that's shaped your understanding of spirituality and manifestation and your connection to the divine feminine, us as vessels, I guess, as receivers, as it's spoken about in Jewish mysticism, which I just think it just resonates so deeply to the teachings of manifestation as well, and this remembrance of our role as women here. So how has that influenced your understanding?
So the grave where I laid my hands on the being and he started talking to me, his name was the Rabbi Shalom Sharabi. And the teacher that had led us to this grave was also named Rabbi Shalom Sharabi, and he was a descendant. The other teacher was David Guillaume, and David has
Mm,
now become very famous for his
mm,
teachings on Kabbalah and wisdom. He and his wife, Mary Ruth, started Mary Ruth's Organics. And then I have another brilliant, God, the book's over there. I have another brilliant Kabbalah teacher by the name of Yosef Yeshurun, and he just helped with the translation of these books that were written that's called The Gates of Reincarnation. So in the Sophia Code, when Mary, no, it was no, it was Isis. Isis says what is known as modern day Kabbalah actually comes from the teachings from the temples. So the
mm,
Essenes and Jesus and Magdalene and that whole community, Mother Mary and all, they were Essenes. So the Essenes were these beings that showed up about 70 years before Yeshua came, and they started to prepare this community of beings that had certain rituals for how you have appreciation for the angel of fire and the angel of water and the angel of air and Gaia herself. They were able to grow food in the desert because they knew how to interact with the elements. Yeshua was raised in such a way that he wasn't allowed to forget who he was. Had some crazy initiations. Magdalene was trained in these
mm,
same methods. She was trained as a high priestess. In fact, I have a program called the Reclamation of the High Priestess, and I take women through how to come back to the truth of them and the power of their womb and the power of their heart and the way that we are diverse in all things. So the Essene community, and I have a little Facebook group that I created where I read every day from the Book of Magdalene, and we're regathering. So at one point, Yeshua comes to me and he said, "Look, if you're going to lead the Essenes, you have to live as an Essene." And I said, "What does that mean?" He said, "You gotta just be eating fruits and vegetables." What? But what about pizza? I'm in New York. And he said, you gotta eat the way that we ate. And they ate of plants. And this was a very far departure from the way that I've eaten, but it's a reverence and you pray over everything. And what it's done for my business, like my business, the abundance was just crazy when I surrendered to Yeshua and Magdalene tell me what to do. And what Magdalene has said is that each woman needs to remember the priestess that she is, the goddess that she is, and her own divine essence as her life force. And it isn't about God as a masculine entity, it's much more in alignment with the goddess, Sophia, as the giver of life, as Sophia talked about
Mm.
in the Sophia Code. And
Mm.
I've led that book club, I think, 3 times in the past
Mm.
8 or 9 years, because I think that book is everything. I bought the recordings years ago. And so we go through the book and then we do the recordings, the initiations together.
It's
And those
beautiful.
initiations are extraordinary. Oh my God.
It's just so powerful, really,
So,
what she was
like,
able to channel.
God bless Kaya Ra. Like,
Yeah,
God bless you, Kaya Ra.
yeah, yeah. And quite a journey that she went on to be initiated in that is
Yeah.
just so,
Yep.
so profound.
Yep.
So you're speaking about this as you know, the goddess being the giver of life. And can we understand this as well as the giver of life is the giving us of ideas, guidance, inspiration, and what is our job here? What is our job here on
To
this?
remember.
Yeah.
Our job is strictly to remember that we are divine, that we are as God created us, that we are sustained by the love of God. Like, when you take the Course in Miracles lessons and you read them from the beginning to the end, it actually tells a story. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but it goes like this. It says,
This is actually from the course that you're
uh-huh.
referring to.
Yep.
Yeah.
So listen to this. Nothing I see means anything. I have given everything that I see in this room all the power that it has. I do not understand anything that I see in this room. These things do not mean anything. They are like the things that I see in this room. I'm never upset for the reason that I think. I am upset because I see something that is not there, because I see only the past. My mind is preoccupied with past thoughts because I see nothing as it is now. My thoughts do not mean anything. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. And I'm upset because I see a meaningless world. Those are the first 12 lessons, and it's a story. So
So
the
we're not to
300,
believe anything that we're thinking, basically,
well,
unless
we
they're
assign,
self-directed.
right, we assign the meaning that it has to us. And when Yeshua took us through the 365 lessons of A Course in Miracles, he was telling us a story of our life. And when you look upon something and you judge it and you have an opinion about it, you've contained it, and you don't organically, you separate yourself from it. You don't organically realize that everything that you see is a manifestation of your mind, and it's a projection of your consciousness out into this screen that is the universe. We forget that we're connected to each other. We judge people, we criticize them, we judge and criticize ourselves. We forget that we're connected to God. We forget that we are God.
Yeah. Yeah. So this remembrance of that we are the divine. And
Mhm.
then what does that show us in our capacity to align with miracles, to manifest, to co-create outcomes in our life that that are in alignment with our highest timeline? I mean, how does that
Right.
help?
So, along the way, through the millions of lifetimes that we've had, we've kind of picked up some um, companions along the way. We call them holodynes. They're also known as entities. And sometimes these beings, we thought it was a really good idea, and they've attached themselves to us, almost like mollusks on the bottom of a ship.
Yeah.
And we need to be cleansed of them so that our sailing is smoother. And sometimes they get in the way of what it is we want to manifest. And they will attach to our heart, and they think that they're protecting us, and we think that they're protecting us, but they're literally getting in the way of our abundance. So one of the things that I teach in my core program is to teach people how to remove these with love. And you find out who they are. It's like a little game of Rumpelstiltskin, and you get their name, and then you invite guidance to come in and to take them back to the light. And sometimes they want to go, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes we want them to go, and sometimes we don't. But what we have to do in order to fully remember ourselves is to let go of everything that we've brought in that tells us that we're not.
That.
We that we're not that we're less than, that we're not deserving or we're not worthy, when we are an extension, we are a sunbeam to the sun. We are God incarnate.
Mm.
And we were taught that we're not, we were taught that we were sinners. I remember when Yeshua came to me and he's like, you know that you were not born of original sin, you were born of original innocence. And I was like so mad. I'm like, what? What, are you kidding me? My whole life I'd been inculcated with how I was a sinner.
Yeah.
And we're not. We're divine beings of light and love. And
What
that's
about
the
the
truth of
ego
it.
then? What about the ego?
Okay. So here's the crazy thing about the ego. The ego was given to us as a companion
Mm,
to help us through our manifestations. But what's happened along the way, and this is literally the sixth civilization on earth, like we've destroyed ourselves 5 times because the ego has gotten out of control. It's when you nest up in the beta and you don't, alpha is like when you start meditation, but theta is when you go into the quantum realm. It's when you go into the field of pure imagination. It's when you're in contact with your spiritual guidance and you go in and you say, universe, I'd like $30,000 this week, and $30,000 comes in because you've gone into the quantum. It's this field of abundance and they want to give you everything. But when you're in beta and you're like, I can't pay this $500 bill, universe goes, okay, she can't pay that $500 bill.
yeah,
Let's overdraw her account.
yeah,
So it is all within our consciousness to be able to manifest anything that we desire. And David and the others, they teach this so clearly through Kabbalah, but this is something that we had learned in the temples. We know that we have the abilities to have and be and do anything that we want. We just have to attune to that frequency. There's
yeah.
a frequency where there are dragons. There's a frequency where there are all these beings, fairies. I have the fairies come and help my clients and my students when we're doing healing. And Gaylandrea and Gaylandriel. Gaylandrea is the dragon, and Gaylandriel came through one day. She's the queen of the fairies. And she said, thank you so much for putting my fairies to work. And the
Mm,
fairies come by, and after a healing, you borrow their fairy wand and you tap, and this golden light comes in, and it literally creates this incredible healing within the body. And so she says, thank you so much for allowing us to be remembered. Thank you for putting us to use. When you come to their frequency, you can see them.
yeah,
And
yeah,
when you lower your frequency, you can't.
yeah.
Of course, dragons exist. We just can't see it.
And a big part of that's our belief, right? I mean, if we believe it to be true.
100%, it's our belief.
Mm,
100%. What we believe, this is what Yeshua said to me. If you were aware that every thought that you think manifests, you would never think another negative
yeah,
thought again.
yeah,
Every thought, it's like raw cookie dough, and every thought is an impression and creates a cookie. And sometimes they're beautiful, and sometimes they're burnt to a crisp, and sometimes they're everything we wanted them to be, and sometimes they're not. But we are the ones that are generating that.
yeah.
We are self-generating our existence.
So how do we take back our power here? I mean, it's a lot to start to think about, thinking about our thoughts and watching our thoughts. But I mean, I know that that is a really powerful gateway. What is another way that you feel we can become more conscious and more masterful in our ability to manifest? And I believe that true. I believe that as well, and that it can actually be instant. But where does the gap come in?
Where we have forgotten ourselves and where we think thoughts that are against ourselves.
Yeah.
And we have to go in and dismantle those. I actually teach something that I teach a technique where I teach people to return to another any images that were ever projected onto them. I call it unmaking realities. And you return, like, if a father's like, oh, you're so stupid, and then you take that on and you start to think, I'm so stupid. You return that to them. You take back the part of you that agreed with that and you unmake that reality about yourself. People have to come into stillness. They have to meditate. They have to allow their frequency to shift, because when the frequency shifts, everything is available to us.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned that with shifting your frequency in terms of what you're consuming. What are
Mhm.
other ways? What are other ways that you find really powerful in maintaining and achieving that high vibrational state to come into alignment with those things that you're desiring to call in? So let's say that $30,000 that you said, or
Pray out loud. We have so much going on in our minds about the things we need to do. And I got to get my car washed and I got to pick up the laundry. And I can't believe he did that. And oh my God, that guy almost hit me. And God, would you please get me $30,000? And oh my God, how did my sister think that that
mm,
outfit looked good? Like, we have to stop, we have to speak out loud, and we have to say, Holy Spirit, holy teachers, angels, helpers, healers, I ask you and I receive and I command to receive $30,000. And when it's done from a place of clarity and they can hear it, they're like, okay, we're on it. That's what the theta realm is for. You have to figure out how to get to theta. you can do it through Mind Valley. Vishen Lakhiani teaches
Mm.
Silva mind control over on Mind Valley, and that thing is brilliant. In 30 days, you learn how to get to theta like this,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and you're
I love
there.
I love that you said and you command, right? It's not that
Mhm.
praying where you're saying, please help me, because that feels like you're coming from more of a disempowered
Yep,
place. It's that recognition
exactly.
of your power when you say,
Yes.
I command to receive. And is that how there's this potency in that, right? And there's something
Mhm.
in the receptivity here as well. Can you speak just a little bit about that?
Absolutely. We are creative consciousness. We are manifestation. We are meaning making machines. But if we assign a negative meaning to something, it will cease us from being able to have that thing. When we say that we want something, the universe will make sure we never get it because we said we want it
Yeah.
versus we will something to happen. So if there's something that you desire, understand that the cycle of manifestation goes desire, intention, allowance, and acceptance. Observe, decide, act, and accomplish. The desire comes from spirit. It comes from God. God literally gives us the seeds. He plants seeds for us to manifest things. We then create the intention that is done through our minds for this thing to exist. And then we have to go into the physicality, the emotions of allowing it to happen. And then we have the acceptance of it when it's actually made manifest in the physical realm. So when you understand this pyramid, what do I want to call it? Like a matrix for manifestation, you have to become hyper vigilant about what it is that you're desiring. Because sometimes we desire bad things to happen to people, and that karma bounces back on us. So it has to be something where you become so aware and so accepting and so certain that everything that you want will be given to you. It is a certainty that is
Yeah.
like you can't swerve away from it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
going to come to you because you deserve it, because you are worthy of it, because you desire it, because God gave you that desire and it's yours.
I
And
love
with
that.
that kind of faith, you can have anything.
I love that certainty. And it feels like it's the remembrance that fuels that certainty,
It
right?
is, it
You
is.
mentioned
And
before
all,
how you don't have worry, and it's because you know who
no,
you
I don't.
are. And
And
so then
anything I
on the
want,
opposite, yeah.
yeah, I just go to Jesus and I'm like, how do I get this thing? And he's like, hold on, you know, it's crazy. If people stood in a frequency of knowing that they were God, like I give him 5 minutes every hour and I just spend time with him and we breathe together or we laugh or we joke about something. And he's just right there for me all the time. It's like
And in
developing a
doing that,
relationship.
I love that. And that connection every hour in doing that. And when you realign with that, you're trusting that everything that is showing up in your world is divine. Okay. I
Everything
actually
is.
got pulled over speeding the other day, but I wasn't speeding. I was in a school zone, but I got a ticket at any rate. And my first reaction was, this sucks, right? This is, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And then I realized that that morning I had aligned with the divine as I did, right? And God and said, I am one with you. Thank you for showing me the miracles today.
Right.
And this was only about an hour after that. And it took me a bit. Like I had a little spiral to begin with. And then I had to sit and go, well, what if this is the miracle as well? Because the divine is in everything.
Yes.
And what is this
That
showing me? And what is this teaching me?
exactly.
Mm.
The Kabbalah formula says pause before you're going to react to something. See if you can respond, pause and say, what a blessing. What a miracle.
Mm.
Thank you for this. Show me how the light is meant to be revealed in this thing.
Mm. And it,
God, show me what you want me to see.
yeah. And it's always there, isn't it? When you ask, it's always revealed to you.
Always, every time, every single time. And Jesus just says, remember, 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 remember who you are. You've just
Yeah.
forgotten. You've just forgotten. Just
Yeah.
wake up. You're in a
Yeah.
dream. Just remember.
Yeah. Just dissolving the illusion. So, so powerful. Is there anything else that you want to share? Let us know as well what your offerings is, how people can connect with you, and if there's anything else that you want to share before we close.
I have I have retreats coming up. We're going to Mount Shasta, which is where I
Mm.
spoke to Thoth. We're going to Costa Rica. Next year, we're going to go to France. We're going to go to Israel. And there's a possibility that we may go back to Egypt. So there's always rituals happening. There are classes that I do. I just started one last week. People could still get in. Last week was kind of the introduction. I teach, these 10 beautiful psychic healing tools for development and for opening up all of your psychic abilities
Yeah.
and for learning how to navigate the Akashic Records and do healing within the Akashic Records. And I teach people, God, so many different things: how to communicate, how to relate, how to have intentionality, how to connect to spirit, how to channel. And let's see what else. I do healing work with people. I have 2 mentoring spots a year, and I have one woman that I'm working with and one that I just completed with. So I have a mentoring spot that's available, and that's a wild ride. That means that you're spending a year with me and you're going to learn everything that I have to teach. That's always really fun. But I also have a lot of students that, as they train with me, I have them practice on people. So sometimes there are free, students learning how to read the Akashic Records, and we offer free readings. So you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Instagram, you can find me on TikTok, you can find me on, oh, we have a beautiful channel called Soma Life Sanctuary on YouTube, about 3,500 followers, and there's thousands of videos over there of
And I will put
channels.
all of those details in the show notes. The links with those will be in the show notes to access. I mean, it's just such a blessing, even just being in your company. I feel incredibly activated. I could feel myself like in that channel with you, and just so much love and truth and wisdom that comes from you, which is such a gift and a blessing. And it's just such a reminder that it is our divine responsibility to say yes to that calling, because when you hold back your light, if you hadn't done that, you wouldn't be impacting the lives of however many people, I'm sure, all around the world that you are impacting through you answering that call. And it's just that reminder that sometimes we just need to get over ourselves, get out
Exactly.
of
And
our way.
it took me years to just be able to fall madly in love with myself. I'm madly in love with myself.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love everything about me.
Yeah.
And that's what I lead with. And sometimes people are like, oh, you're so this, you're so amazing, you're so beautiful. And I'm like, listen, I'm only that because of God,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's such a
Amy.
beautiful lesson and teaching for us as women to be
Yes,
that receiver, because we are so often the giver, and we give so freely in many different ways. And the power of our own reception, and even just in that, and receiving love and in receiving compliments and all of that, it opens up those pathways to calling in more of that. So I
exactly.
think that is so beautiful. One last thing I want to finish with before we close up, because it's the
Sure.
Abundance Club. What does abundance really mean for you?
Abundance. So we were raised with scarcity consciousness. There's not enough, the keeping up with the Jones, keeping up with
Mm.
whomever. Abundance is knowing that you are completely plugged into God, that there is nothing that you want or desire that doesn't already belong to you, that
Mm.
it's literally waiting for you in the quantum realm. And all you have to do is go and claim it. It is about having certainty and knowing that everything that you desire is yours already, is waiting for you, is coming to you. And all you need to do is go get it.
Mm.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
So, so simple.
So simple, but we've just been married to this idea that it's really, really hard. And I
Exactly.
think that's the block, that's the challenge. So I love that. I love everything you said. This is one that I'm going to go back and listen to again, and take notes. And I will pop the
Thank
link to
you.
your book and to some of the other things that you mentioned in this as well. So yeah, really beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you. Thank
so
you. Thank you.
much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Amy, thank you.